joined by Damien Moore, the Member of Parliament for Southport. Welcome to the Downtown Den.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And let me start by asking you, we're going to have a canter around a few political issues, but also learn a bit more about yourself and obviously talk about the recent election results that we've been seeing come through. But let's start first with you, Damien. What got you interested in politics in the first place? What inspired you to get involved?
I think I can just say that I've been involved for 24 years and I've been interested for as long as I can remember. So as a child, watching the news, reading the newspapers, just very interested in the world of politics, what was going on, the kind of people made decisions and what decisions were being made. So as I've said, it's one of those things that I didn't come from a political family, but personally always been interested in.
Yeah, it is strange, isn't it? The bug sort of gets you, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you just get obsessed. You watch all of the news, you watch the news programs, you're always reading about it, and then you kind of start to see how things develop and develop your own beliefs and your own sort of political thinking. And then for me, it was so who represents my views the most, and that's when you start getting involved in party politics. And joining a party and getting involved, and then it just goes on from there, really.
Yeah, and it's right to say you did a degree at the University of Central Lancashire, so that brought you a little bit south from Cumbria, I think I'm right in saying, not too far to travel. But what degree did you do there? What was that like?
So that was history, which obviously it was a very broad-ranging history degree from American politics, Asian history. And there was a lot of political history in that degree. Of course, you do things about the war and then post-war Britain. So although it was a history degree, there was lots of political elements to it. And I think that they do go hand in hand, history and politics, quite a lot of the time anyway. And so it was quite a natural thing to do, and it felt very comfortable. And I really enjoyed history, so it was I enjoyed my degree, and I think that so many people go to university not knowing what to do. I think if you enjoy something, do that, because you'll do well.
And you went on to work in retail for some time. I think you were a manager in Asda. That gave you a good insight into retail and how it operates, I guess.
Yeah, well, there's two things there. I mean, I went to work in retail, joining a graduate management scheme from finishing university. And basically because I just wanted to, get into the real world. I wanted to work in something with people, and there's a lot of people involved in the retail sector. And it's actually quite similar to politics. In retail, it's all about the product and the service, and in politics, it's about the policies and the service. And so it's very, very linked together. And it just helps you, inform yourself just how people think, whether it's your customers or the staff, or how the company wants to, putting all those things together, really does sort of, hone your people skills very much. And having worked, 10 years in sort of, very demanding industry, it really does sharpen your interpersonal skills up quite a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you're right to connect politics with retail. I mean, quite a political issue in terms of high streets. The pandemic has accelerated the move to online shopping. What can government do about all this, or should they be doing anything about it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a natural trend which has been accelerated through the pandemic, and it's been happening for some time, well before the pandemic. People moving on to online and not going onto the high street as much. Now, there's a couple of things. First of all, do we need to look at taking some action? Yes, and I think that the support around business rates is really important. I think we've got to be very supportive. We've got to look at businesses on the high street, and if business rates are going up and up and up, it's just another nail in the coffin if we're not careful. So we've got to look at that. That's absolutely right. But I also think in terms of other support, it's things like parking charges. So the reason that out of town retail does so well is because you can park up relatively hassle-free, go in, get what you want, and come back out. And I think that's got to be part of it as well. I think that local people in a particular town who just want to nip in and out of a shop or two should be given that 1 hour free, obviously free for everyone. But if you're coming, for example, to Southport for the day and you're intending on spending money, you don't mind paying for the day. But if you're a local person that just wants to pop into it, and all those small baskets would all soon tot up and actually help those businesses. So I think there's national things that we can do, there's local things that we can do. And I think also people themselves, it's not just happened because the internet is wonderful, it's people at home clicking on the Amazon button. So if they want a retail presence in the high street, then they've got to shop on the high street as well. And remember, the service that you can get from a shopkeeper, particularly a small shop, is second to none. They can match what you want up with your needs. They can make you feel special, in which a computer and a mouse and a screen can't do. They can give you recommendations that not even a cookie popping up can do. They can make you feel really special. And I think that service element and the theatre at the high street is the thing that will keep it going. The high street will continue to look different. I think that their overall retail footprint will contract, and I think shops themselves will contract. They'll be smaller. But that does not mean that there's no future for them. And here in Southport, we've got some challenges on Lord Street, like many other places. But we've also got a perfect example of how it does work. If you go to Birkdale Village, where there's no shops closed, and if one does close, something moves into it pretty quickly. That perfect micro footprint of what we want to produce in a macro level for the rest of the town is there to be seen. And quite often in business, in politics, it's not about creating something new. It's about looking at something that works and copying it. And that's what we've got to focus on doing, not just in Southport, but around the country. I think that we are unique because we're a destination place. And although it's a very difficult thing to say to sometimes won't be anything like what they are now. It's not justifiable to have the town centres there. They will have some smaller scale retail, but rejuvenating it with leisure and putting more housing provision and accommodation provision in there. So it can still be a great place, but it's just a great place that doesn't really necessarily have to have a town centre because it's so close to another big town or city. We're very different from that being a destination place, but we've all got to have those honest conversations about what will work. It's no good throwing money at something if you're just going to get the same result, if people are still going to go online or still go to that big town or city nearby. It's about what you're doing there. And I think that for us, it's about how smaller, very niche shops that actually people want to come to, and people go to those shops because of the service. As well as that, those shops themselves, there's a shop I was in just before Christmas. I was getting a couple of gifts, not buying online, I just like to add, but going to the shops. And they were quite proud shopkeepers, but they also had an online business where they sent their products around the world. And I think that harnessing the strength of the internet as a small retailer helps you get the best of both worlds. And so there's plenty of challenges, but there's loads of opportunities to make some really positive inroads into a thriving retail sector.
And for viewers that don't know, Lord Street must be one of the most beautiful streets, not just in the Northwest, but in the UK, I would have thought.
Well, of course, I mean, I never stop saying that, it was the basis on which the Champs-Élysées itself was developed. And Napoleon III apparently came here and ordered his architects to make those sweeping boulevards of Paris based on the Southport model. So it's our story and we're sticking to it. And now it's glittering, obviously, because we've got a tree-lined street now with lights in, which are beautiful. And that was obviously because we got that accelerated town fund money, and it's really enhancing just the look of the whole of Lord Street. And that in itself should attract more businesses, because you've got a beautiful street in which you can have your business. People will come, people will see it, they'll be feeling great, and that's what we need to continue doing.
Yeah, beautiful arcades as well. And you mentioned the Towns Fund. That's some of the government solution. You've attracted well over £30 million and some ambitious plans, not just for Lord Street, which is just off the front, but also for the front itself. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Damien?
Yeah, so I mean, it's completely going to transform Southport. That huge investment of 38.5 million in total but will attract more investment. So we estimate there'll be hundreds of millions that will be generated in terms of private sector involvement. And I've been talking to private investors and what they want to do, and it is truly spectacular. So yes, some money for the town centre and Lord Street, which is absolutely right and proper, enhancing that offer there, supporting our businesses there, but also that theatre convention centre, something which is, long overdue. We've got, it's seen better days what we've got, and we basically just need to get something quite different, quite transformative. So a theatre convention centre, and a whole new ethos behind that. So it's not just being used for part of the day, something that can be used throughout the day. And a number of people have contacted me saying that they would like it to be able to host esports events, which I didn't really know anything about, but it is a huge market, and there's a huge appetite for eventing spaces that can accommodate that. And where better to come than by the sea, and that will create an economy in itself, plus conventions, plus all the hosting of the productions that we have at the theatre as well. So actually, in terms of its capacity, time being used, you can use it all day long. It just doesn't have to open at 7 p.m. for people to go and watch Jack and the Beanstalk. It can be used all day long. It's earning its keep. It's bringing revenue in. It's creating jobs for people. As well as that, we've got some exciting things happening in Marine Lake with some light and water shows, which obviously people will come to see in themselves. They are events in themselves, but also if you're having dinner in the restaurant in the hotel and looking over Marine Lake, it's beautiful in itself, but this will be something else which will be really, really, really transformative. People come and see. There's also some plans for tech and business startup hubs. So obviously diversity in our economy, about a third of it is in tourism and hospitality and leisure, but we also want to diverse that economy and make it different so that people with great ideas or great technical skills have somewhere to work. So it's about also ensuring that our host population, that go to school here, go to college here, go to university and still live here, they don't have to go somewhere else if they don't want to. And I think that giving them that broad range of offers is something that we will actually benefit from, because we're retaining a lot of our talent. That doesn't mean they may not want to go to other places, to university, but it's about, if they want to come back to Southport to start something up, to be really innovative, it's there for them. And why should we only just have cities that are able to do that? Towns with the wit and will about them can do that as well.
And it's quite new for government initiatives, regeneration projects, funds like this to involve the Member of Parliament. I think it's a real positive, but something that's not gone before. The insistence upon Members of Parliament being involved in it, I think, is a real positive. What does that mean to you, Damien? How do you see it?
Well, I mean, before the town deals were announced, I mean, I and a number of colleagues were lobbying government hard to support towns. And we were wanting support in a specific way, which was about putting together a plan to help towns in the current difficulties. So they were going through a period of decline, which they've done for over 10 years, if we're honest. And what can we do that's different? Well, first of all, it's about having a plan and talking about jobs and growth and investment and diversing those towns so that they're fit for the future. And somewhere along the line, when the European debate was sort of being thrashed out, James Brokenshire, the then Secretary of State, went to a very empty Parliament and made this announcement that town deals were going to be made available. And nobody was really listening, but I was listening, and I thought, we want a slice of that cake. And so obviously worked with the local council officers and worked with the town deal board, and really, put together a great plan to make that a success. But it only works when you're all working together. And that's what we did. And that's why we were successful.
Yeah, very good. And you've mentioned a couple of times about Southport being a destination town. Transport links, crucially important. You've been campaigning on those in terms of connections to Manchester, but also I think it's called the Burscough Curve, isn't it? Yeah. What's the importance there? Could you just explain that to us, Dave?
So it's all about connectivity. It's about, when I got here, we were having our service from Southport to Manchester Piccadilly taken away, and that was the wrong thing to do. It wasn't only wrong because people in Southport work in Manchester and get off along those South Manchester stops, whether it's Deansgate or Oxford Road or Piccadilly itself. But it's also about getting people into Southport from those stations, that great hub that is Manchester Piccadilly station. So we put together a business case with Opsta, which is our local rail travel group, and made sure that it was a cast iron business case, that there was no problems with it, that it held up to scrutiny. Through the process, we had 3 rail ministers, but eventually we made the case that was so strong that they decided to put the service back, and the service is there and it's functioning now, and I'm quite confident that we'll keep that service. The Burscough curve is also about connectivity, and Southport to Preston is 14 miles, yet is not connected directly by a train link, and that's wrong. It's wrong because we have a huge connection with Preston, with people going backwards and forwards to work, for shopping, for leisure. And the Burscough curve link would not only help people from Southport go to Preston, but people from Preston come to Southport. And of course, Preston is linked to the West Coast Main Line. So that means that further afield, throughout the whole of the northwestern England and southwestern Scotland, people can get to Southport with greater ease. People talk about when people used to come down to Southport from Glasgow and Scotland. That can happen again, because the rail connection is the most important thing in achieving that. People don't want to faff about going from station to station. They don't mind changing a platform to get somewhere, but we're going to make it as easy as possible. And if they come into that station at Preston, they can change from one platform to the next and come into Southport. It enhances everything that we do, from our shopping, leisure, to our great events, things like the air show and the flower show that we do so well. It gives them a whole new footfall for people able to get into this town with greater ease.
I brought my boys to watch the air show, actually, and we camped in Southport. We had a lovely weekend. Great time, yeah. Let me ask you, tourism and hospitality are important, aren't they? That's what we're talking about. And we've been through the pandemic. Where were you, Damien? Because there were some in your party who were quite sceptical about the lockdown and everything. I'm thinking of Graham Brady and others who really challenged, I think in many respects, rightly challenged the government to hold them account. Where were you in all of that?
So I think my view was that we had to take a sensible approach, and we had to make sure that we protected people, but we also looked after people's jobs and people's businesses. So I think it was an incredibly difficult balancing act. You had 2 very, very, very strong opponents, those that didn't want any lockdown and those that wanted a complete lockdown. And trying to guide the policy through the middle was something which was very difficult for the government. I do, a great sympathy with the Prime Minister, because you're never going to please everybody, and everybody's got an opinion, and everybody's opinion differs, and they want to do it their way and don't want to do it another way. So I think that my view was support has got to be there for those businesses, because they've got people that work for them, they've got people that rely on them, and we need to have businesses that are open when we come out of the pandemic. And if they could hold on for that. So the business support was absolutely vital and critical. My office and I dealt with hundreds of cases where we were supporting businesses to make sure that they got the money that they needed to be able to operate after the pandemic. Where I did lobby hard was for, I didn't want any differences if you were in a particular category. So I was very, very vocal about when we had gyms closed in the Liverpool City region, but gyms in Lancashire were allowed to stay open. And I did a Zoom call, actually, although intended really for my own gyms as the Member of Parliament for Southport. I think I had 76 gyms on that call from all over the place, and literally did lobby Matt Hancock very hard, as did some other MPs. And every time he made a statement, we were up, and behind the scenes, we were lobbying hard. And obviously we got that decision reversed. So it was, for me, it was about absolute parity. It was about making sure that if you have some criteria of locking down, that just because a couple of miles away it doesn't change. It was about making it fair for everybody, and that's the main thing that people would talk about. It's not about locking down or not. It's about being fair. Why should they be open if we're not? So I think hopefully now, with the vaccine rollout, with things starting to open up, we're looking at a much more favourable time for businesses. And perversely, I suppose, but because of the uneasiness about going abroad, or whether you can or you can't, or the whole hassle involved, places like Southport could see a real resurgence this summer. I mean, over the lockdown, although we weren't really taking visitors, a number of national publications were talking about Southport as a great place to go. When you were in the Times at least twice, we were even in the Evening Standard, which is not really a national or northern paper, but we were in there. And I think I did see an article from the Manchester Evening News which talked about 15 great things to do in Manchester, and the 15th was actually in Southport. So we are in a position where we can really, 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 if we make this season work, we can get people coming back here again, enhancing that whole tourism and hospitality business, and those businesses that had it tough can start making some real money again.
Yeah. So you might benefit from the staycation. That's the thought, isn't it? That could well be the case, couldn't it? And I think we're getting an announcement later today in terms of travelling abroad, etc. So that will be interesting to see. Let me turn to the elections. We've just had we've now got the Hartlepool by-election results in. Exceptionally good result for the Conservatives there.
No, absolutely, and I did go up there, and the mood on the ground was incredibly good. And I think that obviously, the hangover from Brexit has obviously played some part. I think that the work that Ben Houchen's been doing as the Tees Valley Mayor, and I think that the work of other local Conservative MPs around the area has actually helped strengthen our position. I think that the Prime Minister was incredibly popular when I was out there. People were talking about him and they liked him. So I think that it was a phenomenal result, but it's the way those people felt, and we didn't quite know where those Brexit Party votes could have gone, because certainly before that election they weren't ours, because from 76 onwards they'd always voted for Labour. So I think that there's some very interesting times ahead. There'll be some very interesting results today as we start counting in many elections up and down the country, including ours in Southport. My phone keeps sort of bleeping as people's results keep coming in from other places, and generally positive results. So I think that I think there'll be some local issues there, but I also think national handling of the vaccination programme and the support that we've given, people have appreciated. I think many more people in the real world have taken a much more stable decision that the pandemic wasn't something that we created. It was something which we had to react to. Everybody's reacting differently, and I think our approach now is seeing some positive results with very low cases, very low deaths, huge renewed confidence due to the vaccination programme, and just Britain being open for business. And that's the main thing that we've got to say to ourselves when you've got this terrible situation unfolding across the continent, particularly in France. If you're somebody who's wanting to build a car factory, you're not going to go to France where they're still in the grip of the pandemic, but would you be feeling comfortable going to the UK where everything is calmed down and where we've got a very focused vaccination programme? Of course you would, because we're open for business, we're ready to do that. I think that it's putting us in a good stead, both for our domestic economy and internationally as well. We always say it's a global race, and it is, as we're signing trade deals now, as we're trying to get investment into Britain. And that confidence from having a stable COVID situation, I think investors and those that want to develop businesses here will be looking at with great confidence.
Did you think that proves the point that we were right to come out of Europe, that the vaccination rollout, which has been exceptionally successful, do you think that sort of proved the point?
Absolutely. In so many ways, we're always saying in this country, the decisions that are made there, which we are bound to, are not right for us. And this is the perfect example of that. If we joined that vaccination programme, we wouldn't have got anywhere near the amount of people vaccinated. We would have been potentially stopping vaccinations, even though we had the vaccines, because obviously the AstraZeneca situation, where the European Union wouldn't allow vaccines made there to be transported to UK, but then they wouldn't use them themselves. That's a terrible situation to be in. They were challenging private companies. AstraZeneca, by the way, as we all know, we're not making any profit on that. So actually they were doing everything they could. They weren't profiting out of it. And yet the European Union's complaining about the UK. They're trying to take AstraZeneca to court. And the real thing which is most alarming is the situation in terms of how they make decisions is so slow and bureaucratic that people have died because of it. So absolutely right that we're out, and this proves the point. I think many more people who wanted to remain have probably, now thought it's best that we didn't, and we are still trading with Europe. And there's a little bit of hostility, as we've seen in the Channel Islands, but without, with everything else, it's pretty much business as usual in that regard, and loads of positivity.
Yeah, and we've been talking about the elections, good results for the Conservatives. I'm going to ask you about Boris in a moment, but where does Keir Starmer and the Labour Party go from here? It was bad enough under Corbyn, and now it's still slipping down the opinion polls and elections.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's got to sort of ask himself quite a lot of questions. I think as a person, he's not quite the same type of person that the Prime Minister is, who is very, very, very good with people, loves the campaign, probably at his best when he's doing things like that, really, really does have that sort of can-do approach and really fires people up in the right way. Keir Starmer's a bit more reserved, and in itself, that's it's not a bad quality, but you've got to know and understand people, and the Prime Minister does. And I don't think Keir knows and understands his own people, because they're not voting for him, and they've got to really, really look at what they're doing. And I also think that they've been playing this funny game where they agree with us on things, but only if they think it won't go wrong. But if it goes wrong, they then disagree with us, but only after it's happened. And I think that taking a different approach which would have been to support the government more and appreciate what they were doing more, and still obviously ask those questions that need to be asked, and you can still hold the government to account. But I think the whole approach has just been, we'll say we support it, but we won't say too much about that. But then we'll really go to criticise where we think there's a mistake being made, but actually people on the outside don't care about that because the overall direction of travel is very good and they support. So, who are they asking? And I think that too much of the Labour Party is dominated by metropolitan elites, and particularly in London, obviously. And they've got to get back out into the towns to understand how people feel and what they want. It's about what they want that matters, it's about what they vote for that counts. And I think that they've got to have a huge listening exercise to understand and to relate to people and to know what they want.
And Boris has secured his position, hasn't he? Several months ago, things did look a little bit precarious. We were struggling through the pandemic. People were concerned about the lockdowns, as we've described. It was felt that he wasn't always making the right decisions. But he's an election winner, isn't he? I mean, if nothing else, he wins elections.
Look, politics is power, and power is winning elections. And not only has he won the 2019 election, again with that huge victory, we didn't expect an 80-seat majority. He's winning by-elections, the third time a governing party's ever won a by-election since 1945 or whenever it is. We're winning council elections. Remember, Boris has won the London mayor race twice, so he can win elections. A proven track record on winning elections, of connecting with people and getting the results that he works for day in, day out.
And where is he politically, Boris? Is he on the left or the right? And where are you, Damien? I wanted to ask you that as well. Within the Conservative Party, where do you put yourself?
Well, I think Boris is very much a moderate. This idea that Boris Johnson's right wing, extreme right winger, is completely and utterly, bizarre. He, of course, as London Mayor, was very welcoming of people from right around the world. But also with that, he's someone that believes in law and order and good education and providing jobs. I was part of his leadership team for 7 months, worked very closely with him. And I know that he really does care about people. He's always asking how people are. He will write a note to people, he'll pick up the phone to people. If there's a great thing that happens or something particularly sad, when my father died, he phoned me up and, had a very nice conversation with me. So I think that he's a very centre-right politician, not on the extreme left of our party or not on the not on the extreme right, but just very centrist, pretty much where I am, I suppose. And that's why, you know, I wanted him to be leader of our party and the Prime Minister, because he actually believes in people and getting the best out of people, and actually surrounded, when he's there and he's surrounded by people, he gets them to work at their best. And I think that's what he's done throughout this pandemic. And of course, he did have the bit of a knock where he's in hospital himself, but he picked himself up, dusted himself down, and then just got on with the job. So I think that this idea that you know, is some way very right wing is just I don't know where it comes from. There's no evidence to support that, and he's a very centre right politician, as am I, and just believes in getting our economy going, providing for people. And you know, it is all about people, and they obviously like him because he's doing so well in terms of elections. So I think that we've got the right man for the job, and I think he's doing well.
Yeah, and that's been a puzzle to me, actually. Labour MPs trying to stick these labels on Boris. It's done them no good at all, because the public just do not buy into them, do they? You know, and they might get some satisfaction from it, and it might play well to those on the left within their party. But electorally, it's proven to be a disaster, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, don't attack someone if you've got no evidence to attack them. There's not one example they can point to where they would say, you know, that's the evidence that he's a real hardline right wing MP. And you know, even when we were leaving the European Union, you know, the Prime Minister was still very eager to get a deal. He didn't just want to walk away, which if he was very right wing and very Eurosceptic, he would have. He was very much about working closer with European partners. He's understood that we're still going to have a relationship with people, and there's no point being hostile or antagonistic. And that's why, you know, he went in, got that deal, didn't just walk in there, slam the agreement on the table and walk out. Very practical way to operate, and that's what he's like.
And is there anywhere that the Conservatives can't win now? Hartlepool, you know, everything's up for grabs, is it not, in terms of elections?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's we're looking pretty good in terms of our numbers that are coming out, as we said, from last night in Hartlepool, and from this morning, some numbers that are coming out again. But I think it's just giving the renewed energy and vigour to the Conservative Party that we have got the right policies, and if we talk to people about them, what it means for them and their families, then we get the results. People listen to it. So I think there should be no no-go areas for us. I think we've just got to redouble our efforts. I think we've got to make sure that we're communicating the right message, because often messages so big, they don't actually mean anything to anyone. So, you know, it doesn't matter how many thousands of police officers we're recruiting. What does that mean for your area? So, for example, here in Merseyside, that we would say, well, we've got 200 new police officers. And that means, you know, that you will have in your town, on a night where you'd only have 2 police officers and then some special constables, that you're going to have 6 or 7 police officers, and people will understand. So we've got to actually translate those numbers into what it means for your local community, not just have those big numbers in lights. Important though they are, we've got to tell people what we're doing, explain how it benefits them. And I think that if you lose your messaging and you don't explain it in the right way, and you've got to constantly explain, that's where you lose people's interest, because it's just too complicated. We've got to make the messages very simple. We've got to say we're there to support people, and we've got to go to every part of this country and tell people that. I think that we shall see some good numbers today, but we should never stop working. We should never lose our stride. We're there to do a job, and we've got to carry on doing it.
And let me just finish off with a couple more questions. Any lessons learned from the pandemic? Did you do anything interesting during the pandemic? Were there some positives to be taken from the pandemic for you, or was it rather miserable?
Well, I think that it's just about adaptability. The pandemic lent itself to being able to change. So the way we do things completely different. And I'm talking to you on this Zoom link today. And for most of the pandemic, I've been glued to Zoom in some ways. Now, whether that's talking to my fellow colleagues, whether that's participation in Parliament virtually, or whether it's with constituents. So my usual surgeries, we were doing either on Zoom or over the phone, but that completely changed. They're normally done in person. So I think the lesson of the pandemic is be open to adaptability and try and make it work as best you can, because no one predicted this. It was something that just came out of the blue. So I think always being prepared to still get the job done. You might not be able to do it in the same way as the biggest lesson from the pandemic, but mainly it was involved in helping businesses and people access the support that they needed. I think over the pandemic period, about 3,000 cases, if you like, where we actively helped and supported people either for their business or themselves. Remember, some people who had never ever been unemployed in their whole life suddenly found they'd not got a job, and so it was making sure they had the support and the benefits that they needed to just get through this. Right. And obviously, once people got through it, there would be a brighter future on the other side. And I think that's true. I think the support package was very generous. I think it was one of the best in the world when you look at what other places were offering. And so it was just about making sure that we can adapt. And again, agility. So as an independent nation, we are much more agile to make decisions. If you're, got 27 other people to negotiate how you're going to do something, it's not going to work. And I think that agility to do what we needed to do has been really, really the point of difference. And I think on the whole, yes, there's always lessons to be learned, but I think that we have learned that for the future, but hopefully we won't have any more pandemics. But any other thing that might crop up, I think that we will be much better and much more sophisticated in dealing with much more quickly.
And there's talk of a reshuffle, cabinet reshuffle in July from the Prime Minister. Did you have any ambitions? Are you hoping to move on up at all, Damien?
Look, I'm here to serve the Prime Minister and to serve the country and my constituents to the best of my ability, and I will look at whatever I'm offered and see if I can serve. I'm already Parliamentary Private Secretary to DEFRA, which I've done my third Parliamentary Private Secretary role. And actually, that's quite important because that actually gives you greater understanding of government. So it opens your eyes, you see how it works, and you are better and you serve your constituents better for it because you know how the system works much more than you did before. I'm actually also the Prime Minister's trade envoy for Tunisia and Libya. So two very interesting countries in a very difficult part of the world, and seeing some of the trading opportunities there and being involved in some of those deals which companies are making over there is quite interesting as well. So I will always serve the best of my ability, and I will take anything up that I'm asked to do. But I don't think that you'll see me carrying a red box at any time soon. But I've not been in the job that long, and I think that far too many people in life, are desperate to be promoted straight away, and I'm quite happy to continue to learn to do the jobs that I've been doing. And if I get the call, then I get the call. But yeah, I think that I'm going to approach it from a period of learning and experience, and not desperation and just wanting to be there for the sake of it. I think that it's all well and good, but you only serve people best when you've got the knowledge and the experience to do it well. And we've got a lot of great people doing some good jobs. Naturally, the Prime Minister does make reshuffles from time to time, but there's a lot of talent and ability around there, so we'll see what happens. But yes, I am already serving in some capacity as a second bencher, maybe not on the front bench, but as a second bencher. So we'll just see what happens. But as I said, I'm not going to be putting my elbows out just for the sake of it.
Good, good response. Let me say, we finish by saying that we have a parliamentary reception on Monday the 18th of October in the House of Lords, so viewers are more than welcome to come along to that. And I hope you can pop in and join us if you're around Westminster on that evening, Damien. It'd be lovely to see you.
Yes, no, I'd be absolutely delighted, and I've been very much enjoyed today, and I look forward to the reception. So it can't come soon enough.
Thank you. Have a great day, and thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
You too, Simon. Take care now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed that video, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel on the link below. and be among the first to get to listen to all the latest interviews through the Downtown Den.